right here in Central Florida as well. Many are hoping this is going to be some sort of turning point in addressing systemic issues of racism and police force nationwide. I want to bring in Spectrum News 13's Rachel Kraus joining us now live outside of City Hall. That is in downtown Orlando, where many of the local protests have wound up sort of in the end of recent days. And Rachel, these are very difficult discussions, certainly to have, but you spoke with the civil rights leaders who say this could really be the right time to start having those tough conversations.
Yeah, Julie, I spoke with the chairwoman for the Central Florida Urban League, who tells me protests like the one you see behind me happening here and around the nation could really be a turning point where people seem to have finally had enough and are ready to push for lasting change. But she says for that to happen, people need to come together and start having some honest conversations. These words have been echoing around Orlando this weekend as protests push on following George Floyd's death at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. These civil rights issues aren't new, but Paula Hoisington with the Central Florida Urban League says following months of lockdowns and with millions now unemployed, people have hit a breaking point.
Our communities have felt that our voices are not heard. And when you get to a point to where your voices aren't heard, you start looking for ways to say, hear me, see me, feel me.
Protests following the death of an unarmed black man or woman at the hands of a police officer are nothing new. But this week, Hoisington says something's changed.
The fact that it's happening in so many different cities at the same time makes it different. The number of people that are coming out and saying, no more, no justice, no peace. It just seems different. There's a different feel.
Holding police accountable through use of force policies, body camera footage, and independent investigations are key. But she says first, people here need to come to the table and talk.
It's going to take collaboration from all of us pitching in and leaving our egos at the door and figuring out what is it going to take to change our communities, to change how people are feeling, to change police reform.
As protests continue, she says now is the time to put differences aside and come up with short and long-term goals and plans to implement lasting change.
I think it's critical that we start having these conversations now.
She tells me that the Central Florida Urban League is already being approached by some to have those conversations here in the Orlando community. But she says to turn these protests and these calls for changes into plans that can make rights more equal for all Americans, people need to want to do the work, come together, and push for lasting change systematically. Reporting live in Orlando, Rachel Kraus, Spectrum News 13.